Alrighty, let's jump right into it. I'm Tess Grossman. I go by they, them pronouns, and my talk is called Why a Ramp Really Isn't a Ramp. I am white, wearing Palestinian earrings, a green pullover, glasses, and with big curly red hair. In the corner is a drawing I made of stairs with a sign that says ramp. To start, I think it's really important that I give you context about who I am so that you understand the lens of which I'm giving this talk. First, I'm deaf, like stone cold deaf. A doorknob hears more than me. I can talk because I had 16 years of oralism, and I also have bilateral cochlear implants. I'm early in career, and I'm a comedian to my friends, if you even care. In the corner is a drawing I also made. All art in this presentation is mine, of myself with big glasses, hair, and a sweater with fish on it, because most of my favorite games are ocean ones. For this talk, you will get a 3-course meal. I know, it's still morning. You either had a late breakfast, brunch, lunch, but you're still gonna get a full restaurant experience here. The appetizer will answer why a ramp isn't a ramp. The main course will take the answer and expand on it. You're getting the steak, the roasted potatoes, steamed broccolini, and with some scrumptious sauce on that. And then the dessert will ease the digestion of the main course. Some vanilla ice cream to cool down your stomach so that you leave this talk feeling full and happy with action items. Also on this slide is a drawing. It is a fork, knife, and spoon. All right, let's jump right into the appetizer. I'm thinking bread with butter, a nice salad, or a dip. Take your pick. So when is a ramp not a ramp? The image on this slide shows a ramp screaming, "It's a trick." A ramp is a band-aid to bad public infrastructure. The ramp gets you to the front door of the building, but it does not solve the problems inside the building, which are often inaccessible. Maybe the door doesn't have an automatic open button. The hallways inside the building are too narrow, or the concierge desk is so high that you can't see the person behind it. A ramp is an accommodation, not true accessibility. A ramp is not helpful if the wheelchair user is still stuck at the front door. It is the equivalent of saying, we put a ramp down, so therefore we solved accessibility to this. So for the next slide, I'm going to use Legos to illustrate my example. In this short video, we have a Lego minifigure using a wheelchair. In front of it is a standard brown Lego door frame you see in just about every Lego set that needs one. I cannot fit the Lego minifigure in a wheelchair through the door. I have to rotate the minifigure to the side and then do some fancy geometry to fit the rest of it through. Obviously, we are not actually going to do that to someone in real life. You're ready. So why does this matter? For many, they would be elated that there's representation at all in Lego, but it's not enough. It's not enough to say, we made a ramp, so therefore we're accessible. True accessibility is making the building a seamless experience, from the front door to the lobby, to the bathrooms, and the creepy basement that no one checks. And it is accessible outside the building too, because we hate it when sidewalks are uneven or abruptly end. It is meaningless to provide accommodations when it is a smokescreen, a very bad one at that. Trust me, most disabled people know. I know as a deaf person that it is a smokescreen to hide the greater problem of inaccessibility. The Lego door is a metaphor for the game industry. The game industry is not accessible. I've been looking for jobs for a while now. A bad year for it, bad year for everyone, but regardless, it is not accessible. The barrier is twice as high for me because I am disabled, despite being Schrodinger's deaf and able to talk. And it will stay high until non-disabled game developers recognize and change it. For example, job applications are not accessible to me because they will always ask for my phone number. Folks, I'm not going to answer a phone call. I can't hear. It's not going to happen. I also can't get out of not putting my phone number in an application because many of them will give me a, you forgot to fill in this text box with big angry red letters. Another example is resources. I cannot access a good majority of resources because a lot of them are in Discord. Yes, Discord is not accessible. Even when I advocate to change it, many will not. And we'll talk about that more on the next slide and in the main course. It's the steak. But right now, I want to focus on another key item. As an early and career professional, roles are created by non-disabled people. It perpetuates the barrier of entry because when you compare my experience to one who is non-disabled for the exact same role, I will always lose because the former had more access to more. If you are non-disabled, the opportunities available to you are astronomically higher. In my last slide, I mentioned advocacy and the unwillingness to change. Let's say someone's willing to adjust. They're willing to accommodate me. I run into a problem that I call partial accommodations or selective accessibility. It's when you make the ramp, but not the front door accessible. I have been told, oh, we'll provide you a transcript of the event after. Great, I get a transcript. I still can't participate in the event, network, ask questions, and engage meaningfully. I am still excluded. You accommodated me, but you didn't make it accessible. So I am still left with the burden of accessibility. It's still on me to shake people or quietly leave. And that is most days. I don't have the energy to fight. I am not an endless font of advocacy, especially when advocacy is my entire life. So likewise, it is meaningless to tell me, fight harder, Tess. No, I am not going to do that. For this slide, there's a drawing of me horizontal on the ground, feeling exhausted. Let's talk more about barriers. I want to teach you about a term called disability hierarchy. In a pure definition that was taken from a review of disability studies, it means a social construct that makes certain kinds of disabilities more acceptable than others. I am here today speaking your language, spoken English, and not signing because it makes me a more sympathetic character. I am more palatable to a non-disabled audience because I am closer to what a non-disabled person would define as non-disabled. I am safe, I am relatable, but only for so long as I continue playing the character I am now. And by doing that, I disable myself further because I force myself to push through listening fatigue, and that comes with active listening. When we talk about disability representation, about job opportunities, we will often compare two disabled people and pick the lesser disabled because we operate on the assumption that one will require less accommodations. Disability is both inherently voyeuristic or repulsive. We tell a child not to stare because staring is rude. We consider the child to look at what they understand to be different. An adult looks because they want to know, how did they lose this? Why are they like that? When did this disabling happen? But only for some disabilities. Others, we determine, because of implicit internalized ableism, it is too repulsive to look at. Voyeuristic disability is inspirational. They've overcome their disability. It does not matter that I was born deaf in the age of cochlear implants made by a non-disabled medical community to fix deafness and oralism, the process in which we take deaf children and force them to learn how to talk and punish them for signing in order to erase that which they deem repulsive. So because the buildings are not accessible for game developers, we often turn to consulting. Consulting is great because we create our own accessible spaces, but it is also a symptom of a larger problem of game developers not hiring disabled people or lack of accessibility focused roles. There is also the problem of non-disabled game developers using the term accessibility as a buzzword because of their studio and leadership team, because often non-disabled will talk in place of us. It does not reflect the accessibility that their game loves. I spoke with a well-known game dev consultant. He said, as of September, when we chatted, he had seen maybe 70 accessibility roles worldwide, 3 of which were entry level. Some of those roles are not held by disabled individuals because, of course, it is either too hard and too monumental of an undertaking to make the workplace accessible, like having remote work, unlimited paid time off, meeting notes in advance, or their resume experience, which is disproportionately affected by opportunities could not match their non-disabled peers. Okay, let's bring out the big juicy steak. I also have vegan options too, because I'm an equal opportunity food enjoyer for the main course. In the corner is a drawing of a big steak with rosemary sprigs. Story time, because it's a story that needs to be told. This story takes place a year ago when I was still a student at a game dev school. Part of the curriculum emulates a workplace pipeline where you build a game from scratch. You have designers, programmers, artists, and even producers. I was on a team of 20 students who were all my friends, and one of whom was a wheelchair user. We worked on the 3rd floor of the building. It was Tuesday. fine Tuesday, no owl post on Tuesday, when the fire alarm went off. The school sent an email to the student body a week in advance if there's going to be a fire drill. We did not get an email, so we quickly realized it was not a drill. Appropriately, my team and the rest of the student body began moving towards the stairwells to evacuate. My friend and I stayed in the stairwell at the assembly point. As we were there, we watched our team of 20 and professors leave us. Not one stopped to ask if we needed assistance. In addition to 20 teammates, we watched 200 people go past us, students, faculty, staff, and likewise, not one person stopped to ask if we needed help. So we were alone in the north stairwell. We assumed good intentions about someone, because you could not see us as you were evacuating, would inform the firefighter, hey, there are 2 students in the north stairwell who need assistance evacuating. My friend and I were alone with the alarm going off in the north stairwell for a half hour. We never saw firefighters. Not a single one checked the stairwells. And it's not like I could have made an emergency phone call either, being deaf. On the slide, there's a drawing of me covering my ears with my wheelchair using friends, also bothered by the alarms. He has a cow face on his shirt. The reason I am telling you this story is because empathy is not enough. After the fire alarm incident was resolved, the apologies were not enough. The professors who came to us apologizing for leaving us, for forgetting us, was not enough. And likewise, it is not enough to be told by disabled people afterward, I would never leave you like they did. Empathy is not enough. Empathy is passive, and it will not change the world. Empathy alone is performative activism. The game industry and UX designers, because much of UX overlaps with accessibility, and empathy is the UX core pillar of the discipline, is performative. It is not enough to study disability either. If you have 5, 10, 20 years of scholarship behind you, and it still will never be enough. Studying it will never overpower the lived experience of a disabled person. UX focuses on fixing it as a checklist by naming all the disabilities. Can a deaf person do that? Can a blind person do this? Can a person with one hand do this? It is inherently not inclusive design. To add to that, accessibility compliance is not the same as accessible experiences. Many things are compliant. They're accommodations. The barriers I face as an early and career game dev can often be compliant. It is a ramp to a broken building, a doorway that I cannot fit through. Accessible experiences are holistic. They are global. They are embracing. And it understands that you cannot name or account for every disability that exists in a world of 8 billion people. So it creates meaningful experiences that are all-encompassing and not just accessible for the present, but for the future, for the disabilities that are not on the checklist. Closed captioning is an accessible experience because everyone, not just deaf people, can benefit from it. It prioritizes accessibility, not the disability. This slide has 4 circles on one side representing a checklist, and on the other side, it has a large gray circle representing global experiences. I do want to quickly highlight that the ADA, which stands for the Americans with Disabilities Act, is compliant. Many things are ADA compliant or selectively accessible. The ADA is over 30 years old now. When it was written, it did not know what the disability community would look like in 30 years, or for the growing diversity and intersectionality of experiences. It also does not account for the leaps in technology since then, so it is outdated. And it still has the problem of disabled individuals having to experience barriers to access before it can be remedied. If I am applying for a job that is not accessible to me, I still have to go through the challenge of appealing to non-disabled people who still hold the power to enact change, to change it. The burden of accessibility still falls on the shoulders of disabled people. We will always have accommodations and compliance for so long as non-disabled people hold the power. At school, the disability services coordinator has always been non-disabled. I have to appeal to them and prove that I am disabled enough for the accommodations I request. The system is inherently broken. The system is designed to provide the least amount of accessibility possible. But discrimination is illegal. It's a civil rights violation. Below is a picture of a white woman with dark eye bags under her eyes. She's exhausted. Okay, so someone is intentionally refusing accessibility. Now what? Smell like I can sue them. Look up crip tax. The economic barriers are disabling and meant to keep us down. Homelessness and disability often go hand in hand. Your disability makes you homeless, or you become disabled being homeless. And even if I did have the money, time, and advocacy energy, I will still likely have to appeal to a non-disabled person with the issue. Everything in the United States of America is designed to keep disabled people at the bottom. In a crisis, we are always first to go because representation means nothing if we're still disposable, as I described in my fire alarm story. In 2023, with the mass game dev layoffs, disabled and other marginalized people have been disproportionately affected. In UX jargon, it is a wicked problem. A wicked problem is defined as a problem with no definitive solution. It is not as easy as 1 + 1. All proposed wicked problem solutions can only ever tackle one string in the cat's cradle. Accessibility is a wicked problem. So rather than focus on how big the issue is with however many threads from intersectionalities it deals with, let's focus on the string of game dev. Either you care about accessibility in game dev and use your empathy to spur you into action, because action is what enacts change, or you don't. One is actionable, the latter is complacent, a bystander. Okay, dessert time. We're making dessert peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I know, you were expecting vanilla ice cream or something adjacent to it, but it's my talk, and we're doing a peanut butter jelly sandwich because it's good for talking about wicked problems. On this slide, there's an image, not a drawing, sorry. I pulled this together super fast last night. Oh, a jelly on a bread slice smiling, and next to it is a peanut butter on a bread slice also smiling. Obviously, hire disabled people, but also recognize the imbalance of experiences. A non-disabled accessibility specialist with 15 years of experience is no substitute for lived experience. And we need to standardize the role of accessibility specialists in game dev studios. Again, it is still not enough to have UX designers who study disability. That is still performative activism. You should be hiring disabled people to fill those roles. You cannot claim you have a game that pushes the boundaries of accessibility if your team has no disabled people. Why? Because an accessibility specialist and a UX designer is a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, both together, but in separate roles. And I'll get to why shortly. It is a recipe for accessible design, inclusion, and studio success. Fusing the experience of a disabled person with accessibility challenges with a UX designer who focuses on usability challenge is scrumptious. This slide has a Venn diagram on one side saying accessibility and the other saying usability. The overlap of the diagram is peanut butter and jelly. A UX designer will build you a ramp. An accessibility specialist will make the building accessible and throw out the whole Lego door. Okay, so what does an accessibility specialist do? First, it varies depending on studio needs, and you can have more than one, but they can help with game design, QA, training, research, representation, and loads galore that are not listed here. And of course, they're useful in all stages of the game dev cycle. Very quickly, I want to highlight that a UX researcher can be disabled, but if you are a woman in game dev, a queer person, a person of color, or any other marginalized identity, you can empathize with the fact that it is a full-time job to have people listen and take you seriously. So please separate the roles. 2 is better than 1. It is peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Having said that, accessibility roles in game dev must be intentionally created because consulting, as fantastic as they are, is a side dish. And in intentionally doing so, they become the industry standard, not intentionally including disabled people unintentionally excludes, which if you know the disability movement mantra, nothing about us without us, and you're making a game with accessibility features you're lauding, I would hope you have disabled people on the team. Otherwise, that's performative activism. Very important, but entry-level roles have to be made too. Accessibility needs to happen at all levels, junior to senior, and across disciplines, QA to art and more, because otherwise, how can disabled people change anything? You're still making us knock our heads against the barrier we have to overcome before we're able to change the internal team structure. On this slide, I have a drawing of myself wearing a Mario hat and coming out of a pipe saying, "It's a me." So you have homework. Yes, homework. If you're non-disabled, it is on you to advocate for these rules to be made, especially if you currently occupy a role that would be more effective with a disabled person in it. And with that, that's the last formal presentation slide. Now we had a full 3-course meal together. I got the bill on this one, but I want you to know that my table is always open. Citation slide that no one will read, but I have to have for receipts, just in case. And then my contacts page. I have a drawing of myself with puckered lips, glasses, and curly hair. And that is the end.
Thank you so much, Tess. Thank you for this amazing presentation. We still have so much work to do. So it's great to be reminded of the work that still needs to be done to be inclusive. So thank you again for that. Do we have questions for Tess? People are raving in the comment section.
I'm happy to chill.
I'm just waiting a little bit to see if people are going to ask questions in the Q&A. People are saying best meal of the week so far.
Best meal of the week. Thank you.
Any questions that can get into the Q&A section? Okay, I have a question for you in the meantime. For UX people like us, like for example, I'm not in a company. It's hard, I cannot advocate for roles. What do you think is the best way to advance inclusion when you are a consultant?
When you say you cannot advocate for roles, what do you mean by that?
If I'm not in a company, I don't, I cannot move aside to let someone get in. So as an outsider, what do you think is the best way? I can advocate as an outsider, so it was a bad way to explain it. As an outsider or consultant, what do you think is the first step to advocate for that when you are not in the company?
Okay. I think the first and the best step, if you are not in a formal game studio, whether that's indie or AA or mid-tier, I think the best way to advocate is still to highlight disabled voices, not just me. There's plenty of amazing disabled people out there, whether that means, reposting them on LinkedIn, highlighting them, making sure that when you're talking about accessibility, you're giving resources to other consultants or people who work in the industry, so that it's not just you, it's you connecting a bunch of threads together so that people listening to you can follow those threads out and seek those people out.
That's great advice. Thank you, Tess. We have a question from Lucas. What is your point of view about ADHD professionals occupying disability roles in the game industry? In my country, the majority of business do not see ADHD as a disability, and this is hurting a lot.
ADHD absolutely is a disability. It goes back to the disability hierarchy question, where some people will naturally pick somebody with ADHD over somebody who may be blind because ADHD inherently needs less accommodation. But that said, it doesn't erase the disability itself.
For sure. I'm still waiting to see if there are other questions. I think a lot of people are digesting your 3-course meal.
Thank you.
Okay, I do have a question. Hi, Tess. Excellent talk. Spitballing ideas. What do you think about developing AX teams with people with disabilities within publishers to help the broader AX teams create new industry standards?
I am actually not familiar with what AX stands for,
Yeah.
so if you could clarify that.
Yeah, I would hope so, because I'm not familiar with it either. DC, could you maybe in the chat really quickly tell us what AX team means for you?
Ooh,
Oh, accessibility. Okay.
I also did not know it stood for accessibility, so that's fun.
No,
Oh,
me
Drew,
neither.
yeah. Could you ask the question again,
Yes, of
Celia?
course. So, what do you think about developing accessibility teams with people with disabilities within publishers to help the broader accessibility teams create new industry standards?
I am actually not able to answer this question because I need more time to think on it. But if you reach out to me on LinkedIn or via email, I can definitely give you an answer to that once I've had time to think on it.
Yeah, it's definitely broad. It's difficult to answer on the spot for those questions. Okay, just waiting a couple more seconds. We have so many comments on your presentation, Tess. All right. So I think we can end here. If you have more questions, you can type in the Q&A. If Tess has the time, they can answer in the Q&A or later on social media. Thank you again so much, Tess, for this very insightful presentation and lots of food for thought, like literally.
Thank you. I appreciate this.
Thank you so much.